Hey yo! All right, we gonna talk about AEW. Winter is coming from December the 10th, 2025. This is the show before they go to Europe. I was shocked to hear that they were going to Europe. There was no big deal made of them going to Wales or I think England, something like that next week. Okay, do your thing, AEW. All right, so obviously they tried to have an epic match on this show. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to let you guess whether I watched it or not. Obviously Sarah Stock has been on an absolute nut for like a week now. A lot of people have said, Mongo, you're ignoring this. Why aren't you talking about what Sarah Stock going on? It's the fact that I don't understand what's going on. There is just a whole lot of conversation. Like, she's just tweeting stream of consciousness tweets. I go peek. She's talking about AEW and, how they were unfair to the Mexican talent and there was nobody to pick them up. They got no drivers and yada, yada, yada. I was like, man, that's kind of screwy. Maybe we should talk about that. And then I'm like, okay, I'll just let her collect more tweets and then I'll come back to it. And then she's going off on Bruce Pritchard about some stuff he did in WWE to her, how he didn't care about the Money in the Bank ladder match for the women. I'm like, okay, whatever. Then I come back, she's going off on Carlos Silva about TNA. I'm like, oh my gosh, she just has a problem with everybody. I can't keep track of this. I can't keep track of this. So, she really didn't say anything that changed my perspective on AEW. She didn't really rip the skin off of anything major. I think they pretty much kept her at arm's length, but she obviously is going through something. She's going to tweet through it. He's going to see what happens on the other end. We'll see if something major comes out. But she has gone off on Johnny Ace, and she really hates the legal side of AEW, the office of AEW, and she hates the office of TNA. So I don't know what's going on, man, but it just goes to show she's been around for a while. I just want people to realize that I'm not ignoring it. I just don't think it's a story. I don't think it's worth talking about because I don't think nothing major was coming out of it in terms of revelations for things that could change how we view AEW. I don't think it matters how they treat the Mexican talent because, again, it was hearsay. Even though I think Stephanie Vaquera actually did hit the like button on one of those tweets, but it's just not that interesting to me. So let's get into this show, which is also not that interesting to me, but I figure you guys are here to talk about that. Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron defeat Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa to become the first ever women's tag team champions. And it couldn't have happened to a nicer pair of girls. I am actually very happy that Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron won the championships. I think it's amazing for them. Harley Cameron has worked very hard. Willow Nightingale has been a staple of AEW. Putting them together, it kind of felt like a jabroni tag team, but AEW really wanted to take a risk, and so they did, and I'm very appreciative of it. The match itself was okay. It was fine. I obviously didn't care that much about it, but it was okay. It didn't suck or anything like that. So now that the titles are officially birthed, they're arrived, they're going to be on the first thing smoking to Collision because Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale, who are not featured on Dynamite enough anyway, are the champions. So, see you later. Okada defeated Jack Perry in the Continental Classic. Jack Perry is filling in for Darby Allin. Darby Allin was in the hospital. I actually forgot to talk about this last week. I saw the vignette, and I forgot to discuss it. Maybe because there were so many other things going on, it just slipped my mind. But Darby Allin couldn't walk last week and was in the hospital, and they decided to take him out of the tournament to protect him. And so now he's up walking around now, so he's fine. At the same time, though, they want to protect him from himself, so he's not allowed to compete in the tournament. So they decided to just put Jack Perry in there. So they forced us to watch Jack Perry versus Okada. Had you fooled, I was reading comic books during this. Especially when Jack Perry bit Okada on the penis. See, AEW is a place where people are putting penises in their mouths. So, I mean, it's perfect, right? What made me laugh was after Okada beat this scrub, they decided to offer him a spot in the Don Callis family. Of course, he said no. Then he gets jumped, and Luchasaurus comes out there. And Luchasaurus keeps pausing like he's going to jump in the ring. And it looks like a DVD skipping. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought it was like something wrong with the satellite. I'm like, what's happening? Because he's like jumping, but he's not getting in the ring. And I'm like, why wouldn't he get in the ring? And then the whole time, I think it's Hechicero is like punching Jack Perry. These are the weakest punches of all time. But he's like punching. Like he's the only one doing anything. Jack Perry's still on the floor. He's covered up. And the other guy's just punching. I'm like, is we just going to let this go? Like, this is going to go on forever. And eventually, the Young Bucks showed up with chairs and somehow was able to fight off 7 people with chairs. Okay. Look, man. AEW, wow. Luchasaurus being stuck in place is ridiculous. They're going to have a 6-man tag match next week. Allegedly, the Elite with the Omega and the Bucks are going to challenge any 3 members of the Don Callis family. It's going to be the 3 jabroniest members of the family, no doubt. Moxley claims that his back is against the wall, that he can still score big. Believes in a principle that if you're not willing to work, then you shouldn't eat, which led to the hunger that they feel, which fuels their work ethic. This sounds like a babyface promo. And then Daniel Garcia jumps up talking about how hard they work. They're the hardest working guys in AEW. I'm like, why are we putting... These are supposed to be heels. Why are they pushing work ethic? That's a good thing. You know, if you want something, you should go out and get it. That's a good thing. Why are they preaching good values? I don't know. But I guess they don't believe in people actually getting booed in AEW. What they do? Only when they bore you to death. They showed a vignette for Momo, my girl Momo. She lost 2 matches, and now they got she's spiraling vignette because she lost to Red Velvet. Okay. She wasn't featured on this show outside of this vignette, however. I guess they figure she worked Ring of Honor, she worked the pay-per-view, she did her quota for the week. Don't got to show up to work anymore. Her quota is done. Mark Briscoe is going to be fighting Death Riders this weekend. That's going to be boring. The Triangle of Madness got day jumps from jabronis. They got chased off by Statlander with a chair. Thrilling stuff. Apparently, I thought last week that Statlander and Jamie Hayter were going to wrestle each other. It turns out they're going to end up being tag team partners against 2 members of this Triangle of Madness thing, which is like Julia, Sky Blue, and Tekla. Everybody seems to like Tekla. She's not bad. I don't hate Tekla. So it seems like Tekla is actually the contender for the title, I guess. It's weird, though, because Statlander has been champion and she is not really featured on the show. And I don't really understand why she's feuding with these girls, but at least she's doing something, you know? What's going on with Statlander and Jade Cargill and Stephanie Vaquer is extremely interesting to me, because you got these 3 women and there's no feud. It's like they won world titles and immediately got slotted as mid-carders. Nobody ever thinks about anything they're doing as being important. Even Statlander just won one of the biggest matches of her career, where she beat Mercedes Moné, who we're told is the greatest of all time and is a huge star. And we've moved on from it to the point where she does no stand-up promos, and she has no specialized setup feud for her. She is apparently mixed up with this thing with Jamie Hayter and the Triangle of Madness. So, literally, compare how Statlander is being booked when she was as the world champion to Toni Storm. And you could compare that to Britt Baker. Like, the women's world champion in AEW is usually presented pretty well. I think there's been a couple of occasions, like with Riho and the dude that won the title. They weren't presented that strongly. Thunder Rosa, Saraya, maybe the first Toni Storm, the first 2 Toni Storm title wins weren't that all that important. But Statlander she's sometimes lower even than the TBS champion. It's as useless as Athena. Athena has been officially the Ring of Honor Women's Champion for 3 years. 3 full years. And nobody cares. I've never seen somebody win a championship, hold it, defend it pretty regularly. Like, she has pretty regular title defenses. And just nobody gives a shit. Because there's virtually no division. And then she involves with no feuds. I think she had one match that was in a feud when she wrestled Billy Starks. That was it. We got nothing. There needs to be a revolution. And it's a lot of this is because of the bookers. Obviously, Triple H and Tony Khan, they're courting the same audience. And when you can't help but see how similar they are, when you sit down and realize that you had somebody like Chris Statlander beat one of the biggest stars in your company, and then you immediately do nothing with them. You don't elevate somebody like Tekla to wrestle them. You don't try to do anything with Jamie Hayter to make her interesting to wrestle them. You took Toni Storm away. She beat Toni Storm too, by the way. So she took Toni Storm away, put her in the tag team division. And then you didn't try to build up anybody else. Where's Megan Bayne? I know Megan Bayne was in the tag team tournament for a while. I talked about this whole thing they had with the Death Riders with Marina Shafir, even though she sucks. There was something there between Statlander and the Death Riders. They just dropped all of that. They just threw it all on the bonfire. Nobody cares. And now she's chasing jabronis with chairs. Oh, whatever. Powerhouse Hobbs and Shit Bata were defeated by Swerve and Hangman in a tornado tag match. Swerve and Hangman beat up some of these jabroni ops guys who were wearing ops t-shirts. They're very, very awkward looking people. And they beat them up all around the building. They finally got back in the ring. They did some stuff in the ring, and then Shit Bata got pinned. Yeah. Yep, that happened. Yes, sirree. Sure did. Did I watch it? Not enough. Not really. I like Hobbs. I don't like the rest of the people in this match, though. And it's not enough to get me to pay close attention to it. Speedball Mike Bailey versus Kyle Fletcher was a marathon. They literally hit each other with every big move that they could do for seemingly 30 minutes almost. I think the match ended with 15 seconds left or something like that. It's not like a whole lot of time. They both kicked out of each other's finishers. There was just a whole lot done. It was like so many kickouts. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, this is a tournament match. This is not for the world title. This is just for 3 points in a tournament. You don't need to have this match that long for a tournament match. And you don't need all these kickouts just for a tournament match. Again, I've said it before. Everybody wants to have these epic matches. This match is probably going to get 5 stars from Dave Meltzer. Everybody wants to have these matches. There's no point to it. There's no story element to this. It's a tournament match. In 2 weeks, I don't think anybody's going to remember that this match existed. Again, these matches are made to be done for mixtapes. All right. It's like when a rapper raps over somebody else's beat. They may waste some really good lyrics and stuff like that, rapping over somebody else's beat. these people, Tony Khan, and a lot of the people who really enjoy AEW, the sickos, they're used to watching mixtapes. They're used to watching pastiches of shows. Matches from here and here and here all thrown together. They're not used to sitting down watching the entire show. Because they spent their whole childhood watching Japan tapes that are mishmashes of different matches from different places at different times. And then on the internet, they do the same damn thing. The Ring of Honor and all that kind of stuff is presented that way. It's just a mishmash of matches, even if they happen the same night. There's no through line on the how things build. Sometimes there's very rarely a build from between show to show. So it just incentivizes you to go out there. Everybody gets 15 minutes at least. You do every spectacular move you know how to do. You have all these really dramatic kickouts. You bend the rules to the point that the rules don't exist anymore. And they've been doing this for 20 years. So it doesn't really mean anything. This match meant nothing to me. Nothing. There's going to be people say, I've seen people already say it's the best TV match of the year. And look, it may very well be. But I didn't care about this. I wanted this to be over. I get to a certain point where I want these things to be over. I use this analogy in a different video. I don't care about how good of a musician you are if I don't like your music. When you have these really ridiculous 30-minute matches, I don't care how technically proficient Kyle Fletcher is. I don't care about how technically proficient Speedball Mike Bailey is. I don't care how much high-flying moves they do. I don't care about how weak or strong or whatever their strikes are. I don't like the music. When you put it all together, ultimately it's supposed to make a song. I don't like the song. So I don't give a shit. This match can be the best TV match of all time. I don't care. I didn't watch it. Okay, I watched... If this match was 30 minutes, I'd probably watch 5. Because there's no reason for me to care. I always watch the finish of things. So I always watch enough to get to the finish. For some reason, it's like a magic trick. Or I was like, okay, I can at least sit 2 minutes and I'll get the finish. But there's nothing building up to the finish. And that's how AEW matches are produced. You don't build to the finish. The finish just happens. You know? Like they'll hit a big move. You're like, oh, okay, maybe that's it. No. I think Kyle Fletcher's finisher is a brain buster. He kicked out. Okay. At that point, I'm like, all right, we're just gonna keep going. Earlier, before that, Speedball's finisher, which I think is the flipping double knee thing, what they call the ultimate weapon. That's his finisher. And Kyle Fletcher kicked out of that. And I was like, that's what we're in for. We're just kicking out of everything. What point does this make to anybody? And then Kyle Fletcher was selling it like, oh no, I lost this tournament match. I can't believe it. You'll be all right. The main event, however, was Samoa Joe versus Eddie Kingston. Samoa Joe earlier in the night said that the guy that Eddie Kingston was looking for was the guy that was staring at him the whole time. I was like, oh, okay, that's nice. Eddie Kingston cut a very uninteresting promo, you know, getting oddly emotional about Terry Funk's 50th anniversary of him winning the world title. I was like, oh, do you celebrate this? You celebrate Terry Funk becoming world champion? Man, you're a dork on a different level, Eddie. I couldn't imagine. But at least Eddie Kingston looks like a pro wrestler. Anyway, he says that he's going to give it all that he's got. And he's going to go out there and give Samoa Joe the fight of his life. But he didn't sound confident that he could win. And that kind of took me out of it. I wanted to see more piss and vinegar out of Eddie Kingston. I wanted it to feel more like Eddie Kingston was coming and coming for the title and coming with some fire. But Eddie Kingston was kind of somber. Not just, the 50-year anniversary of Terry Funk and him getting kind of choked up about that. But also him saying you don't get a lot of matches for the world title and you never know, this might be the last one. I expected him to flip the switch right there, you know? And it just felt like he wasn't all the way there. He felt off. And that kind of took me out of the match when the match was happening. Because I said last week or 2 weeks ago that despite the fact that I make fun of Eddie Kingston, I do not mind when they book him. You know, when he's doing something interesting, he's a good talker. And he could talk me into being interested into what he's doing, even though I make fun of him. He failed to do that here, you know? And I think the match was kind of pedestrian. I don't think that it was the match that they could have had. I think they could have had a better match. And Samoa Joe got choked out, and that was it. He tapped out. That was the end of the show. Nothing special about it. Joe just beats Eddie Kingston, and that's it. All right, so that's it. That's all there is for Dynamite. Now, some people have also emailed me and said that I haven't spoken on the Warner Brothers schism, and that's because I don't think AEW is really going to be affected. Warner Brothers, the part that Netflix is buying of Warner Brothers does not include the TV stations, so it doesn't include AEW. So I thought that was pretty well established. So, people who are saying to me, hey, why aren't you talking about this? This is a big deal. Like, no, not yet. Not until they sell that second part. AEW for right now is fairly safe. The big issue is going to be movies, video games, and the intellectual property that Netflix is picking up. That's going to be some interesting bits. I've already heard that they're probably going to end up closing WB Games, which has making the Batman Arkham series, I believe, that they made. I actually enjoyed, I think, the first one or the first two that I played for Xbox 360. The movie studio, that's going to be rough. Like, there's going to be a whole lot of rough decisions being made, but Warner Brothers was a dinosaur. It is a dinosaur, rather. They got some good content, a whole lot of good stuff from HBO that's probably going to end up on Netflix. But I don't see it affecting AEW because they didn't buy the TV networks. So AEW can continue to be on TV. And if I was Tony Khan, I wouldn't panic about this whole thing. Not yet, anyway. And I think Tony Khan, as a leader, has to show some level of composure. He has to just understand that he's not in control of this situation. But if he panics, then the fans will panic, then the talent will panic, and then everybody's going to be in a bad situation. He has to be the guy that says, okay, there's nothing we could do here, but it's not good that the parent company that our networks work for is selling off pieces of the company. That's not good, but they've been talking about that for a while. It's something that has been in the universe for at least a year or two, that they were going to sell Warner Brothers Discovery, or they were going to break Warner Brothers and Discovery apart again. There's been a whole lot of stuff that they've been talking about. So he had to know something like this was possible, right? I'm not sure if Tony's going to be able to handle it when the hammer comes down on the network TV side of this whole thing. Because if somebody comes in and buys those networks, that's when we got to have a conversation about what AEW could possibly do. I mean, if you got Netflix already, get ready for that price hike, because that price hike about to be nasty. I was talking to my dad about it because he has Netflix, and everybody complains about how much Netflix costs. But Netflix keeps going out and acquiring new products. That does nothing but increase the cost on your end. The idea being is that they're increasing their value for you, so you should pay more. That's the thinking. They're going to go out there, and Warner Brothers Discovery owns like Turner Classic Movies, so there's probably going to be a bunch of old movies that they're going to dump on there. Probably some stuff from the HBO archives is going to end up on Netflix. All this sort of stuff is going to, once the deal is complete, it may take 3 or 4 years before this stuff starts to get uploaded to Netflix, but then you're going to see that very nasty price increase. And get ready for it, because it's a-coming. It's coming. The question now is going to be what's going to happen to the other side. Because I know Paramount was trying to buy it. They were trying to buy Warner Brothers. Perhaps they buy the other parts of Warner Brothers. And Paramount could be a very interesting situation. But they also might not buy it because they're pissed off about the whole Netflix thing. I just read an article saying that Zaslav ghosted the CEO of Paramount to take the deal with Netflix. So there might not be a lot of good there. But if you're Tony Khan, you don't trip about this right now. You stay abreast of the situation. You keep your fingers on it, and worst comes to worst, you start courting other people to snatch Dynamite, so there's no falling of continuity. You see who is hostile to pro wrestling and who is willing to keep it around. You obviously keep an eye on WWE's media partners, as a lot of those media partners are in the hunt for buying Warner Brothers and might buy TNT and TBS. Ultimately, though, I think the fact that they just signed a contract, and the damn contract is not even a year old yet, is pretty devastating. Especially for people like Meltzer, who's been talking about, the kid's making money. The kid's making money. Okay. Okay. We'll see. Well, as of right now, though, there's nothing to this. There's nothing to the Warner Brothers Netflix thing that affects AEW so far. Maybe it'll affect AEW on HBO Max. I just now thought about that. But that's not a major revenue stream for AEW anyway. It's only $10 off for the fans, so it doesn't really benefit the fans either. So, I don't know. But let me know what you guys think of Dynamite and Warner Brothers Netflix stuff. Sarah Stock losing her mind, and any other things that AEW related. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out. Boy.